and welcome everybody. Okay, so good evening. Welcome everybody to the latest guest speaker event in our Rutgers Business School Masters of Science in Digital Marketing Program Speaker Series. If you don't know me, I'm Stacy Smolin-Schwartz. I'm the founding director of the MS Digital Marketing Program here at Rutgers Business School and a marketing professor at Rutgers Business School. Today, media measurement is at a crossroads. There are so many disruptions driving changes in media consumption, media measurement, from changing consumer behavior to the distribution of media and the role of AI. Tonight's guest speaker, Mainak Mazumdar, who's Chief Research and Analytics Officer at Fox, will offer insight into the future of media measurement and how we will get there. And Mainak is no stranger to disruption and transformation. He is an esteemed data scientist, most recently serving as Nielsen's Chief Data and Research Officer, leading the development of the Audience Identity System and the Nielsen One measurement platform. Prior to Nielsen, he was the Chief Science Officer at Simul Media, responsible for designing the company's data-driven targeting algorithms, and Chief Strategy Officer at GfK, where he led digital transformation for that measurement company. And he began his career with ad tech startups, including Google's DoubleClick, which is how I was fortunate enough to first get to know Mainak. Mainak is a TED speaker. He's led several industry-wide initiatives. He was a board member at the Advertising Research Foundation, and he's currently a member of the U.S. Census Scientific Advisory Committee. He holds an undergraduate international economics degree from the American College Switzerland and has completed master's and doctorate studies in demography from Brown University. Today, Mainak serves as Fox Corporation's first ever Chief Research and Analytics Officer, operating on the enterprise level, spanning across 4 Fox ad sales portfolio verticals of sports, entertainment, news, and streaming, to build a data and audience-based sales strategy that holistically links the platforms while maintaining each platform's unique brand identity and culture. As I turn the floor over to Mainak, I would like to invite you to please participate in this conversation. Feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat, and while he's speaking, we can insert them when there's breaks, or he'll pick up on them and respond, or you can feel free to raise your virtual hand to ask Mainak a live question, and he'll pause throughout to field those questions. We are very lucky to have him here to teach you, and he's very interested in teaching you. So, Mainak, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. Good to see you, and good to see everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Just want to do a sound check. All right. So, look, I'm really excited. I do speak to a lot of students in university, and I find it one of the most enriching part of my work. Beside the work I do. So I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for this opportunity. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about mostly about the measurement, but I wanted to set the stage, like just why does it matter? What is measurement? How media has been measured in the past, where we are going, and so on and so forth. I do have some slides that I want to take you guys through to really give you some data and perspective. And ultimately, I wanted to, argue, or hopefully I can share with you guys that how we're bringing AI in solving some of the measurement challenges, okay? As Stacy said, I want this to be conversation. So if you guys have questions, please raise your hand or write a note in the chat box, and I'll try to stop and obviously respond to your questions. All right, let me start sharing this deck I have. Screen share. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. Let's, measurement is very important in media, and there are 2 parts of the media that are extremely important to, measurement is very important. One is advertising. So if you're on the web, in most cases, the web is free, right? And the way web is free is because advertisers are sponsoring the content for you guys to consume. So ads, whenever you see ads, it's part of the measurement ecosystem, right? Without measurement, the advertisers are unable to count how many people are watching, what they're watching, which shows or which, platform, like it can be TV or your mobile devices. So to advertising ecosystem, measurement is extremely critical. And part of the reason it's critical is because, right now advertisers spend, and Stacy, you may know the number, what, $600 billion globally in advertising. And that amount of money comes in to support that brands and advertisers are communicating the messages to you folks, right, as a consumer. And the second part of the measurement, which is important, is just the content itself. We all subscribe to Netflix, or many people subscribe to Netflix, or you're subscribing to different streaming platforms. And these platforms want to know a lot about how people are consuming their content, which shows. So if you think about these two large ecosystems, one I would call the advertising, the second is content. What I'm going to talk to you guys about today, it supports these two large businesses, okay? As a backdrop to measurement, what's interesting, what we are seeing today is that technology for last, I would say 20 years, has been disrupting how we measure, because part of the reason is because as a consumer, our behavior has changed. I remember, where, we used to have TV and cable. Then the internet came in, which Stacey was talking about, a double click. It was early days, and these two part of the media was really, really independent to each other. They were not measured exactly the same way. They're measured differently. And when I'm talking about measurement, it means that about people, what consumers are doing, how they're watching TV, or how they're listening to a radio, or how they're consuming media on the web. And if you think about what's happening today with the disruption in mobile devices, and a lot of the content that you see on TV are also moving to the mobile devices. So there's a massive disruption in consumer behavior, and that's creating a lot of the challenges how we measure. Now, historically, I want to spend maybe a minute or two before I get some of the data. What I want to share with you is the TV was measured, which is the focus of my talk today, has been measured through a panel, which means that, a company like Nielsen would go out and recruit panel homes in the US, and it's quote unquote random sample. So it's representative of the audience that's consuming TV programs and whatnot. So we would recruit a panelist, we would call Nielsen Homes. And if you agree to be a part of the panelist, we would go in, and Nielsen, by the way, still does it today. And there are other parts of the business as well. You'll go in and put a meter or a hardware, connect the TV with this hardware. And so Nielsen can monitor everything that's happening in the home. Makes sense? So it's a sample of, it's about 40,000 of high quality, randomly sampled, that measures, what's happening in TV in the US. Now, if you think about 40,000 homes, that's great when you had 4 networks, like ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, right? But imagine if you have thousands of networks, you add Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, then YouTube, and all the websites, all the apps, Meta, Instagram. Suddenly, as a consumer, we are not only watching video or program on these 4 or 5 networks, suddenly we are consuming media on thousands of entities. So 40,000 samples was not good enough. And some of the challenges I'm going to talk about is how media got fragmented because of the technology, and our behavior has changed. Okay. And I wanted to tie this back, this to discussion is how we are thinking about AI and bringing artificial intelligence in solving some of the challenges in measurement. Okay. With that, let me start this couple of date slides. I put some slides together so I could take you guys through, but please stop me if you have questions, and I'd love to get some questions, because then I would know, like, if I have to clarify some of these topics, I'll be more than happy to do that. Okay. All right. So I think, before I was preparing for this deck or this presentation, I wanted to go to ChatGPT. I don't know if you guys have heard about ChatGPT. It's a large language model that's available to everybody. You could use it to ask questions and then whatnot. It has a module called DALL-E, which is where you could write a text and it produces images. So I asked my prompt for this slide was that, show me a family watching TV in 1970 and then one in 2020. And you see what came out of this two images. It's a glimpse of how our lives, our homes, and our habits have transformed over 50 years, from 1970 to 2020, all through the eyes of AI. If you think about 1970s image here, the family is huddled together, sharing the collective experience of watching a program, and most likely it's Johnny Carson. And some people say, no, it may not be somebody else, probably based on the picture, on a large boxy TV. It was a communal moment. TV offered only a handful of channels dictating how, when, and what people watched. Fast forward to 2020, which is the right side of your screen, it's a totally different scene. The modern family is in the same room, but immersed in their own screens. It happens in my home all the time. It's a large, flat panel TV playing NFL in the background. Now, as you can see, the technology is purely personal. The large shared screen is competing with tablets and smartphones, each probably streaming different content. The once unifying experience of TV viewing has given way to personalized on-demand media consumption. As you compare these two images, it's a perfect example of fragmentation. Fragmentation of media and fragmentation of what I call attention. Like before, you could see on the left-hand side, people are all watching the same program at the same time. In the evening news, everybody, after dinner or before dinner will sit down and watch television and TV news. Those days are gone. So to understand where we are with the measurement, first I will share the fragmentation and consumer choice, how that disrupted audience media behavior, which in turn exposed to the limitations of some of our current measurement techniques. And I'll describe then what are the key measurement challenges, and finally share some of my thoughts about the future.
Mainak, before you jump in, there's a question in the chat from Simon. I'm not sure if this is something you're going to get to or if you want to address it now. He asks about whether these two images illustrate that marketing or advertising spend can be more targeted or segmented as each individual consumes content specifically for them compared to marketing content digestible for an entire family.
Great question. It's absolutely 100% true. On the left-hand side, on the linear, it's the same content, so there's no personalization, right? On the right side, everybody's watching NFL, but they're also watching, they're in their own devices. So each device these are personal devices, like a phone or a laptop or iPads or whatnot. So these can be personalized. So, the advertiser can personalize advertising. So it's true, it's absolutely true. These two are totally different type of measurement systems or marketing systems. And what's underlying this the change for the last 50 years is technology. And technology is creating this massive change. Great question. Thanks for asking. All right, so let's share some data. As Stacy said, I worked at Nielsen Company for half of my professional life, and Nielsen tracked changes in audience behavior over the last 50 years. And the transformation from the ChatGPT image is seen in the viewership declining among top-rated shows. So what we have is the years on the left, and I think every 5 years increment, and the ratings of the show, the top-rated shows for that year. Back in 1970, Rowan and Martin on NBC pulled in a solid 26.3 ratings. The ratings were pretty much in the mid-20s until the commercial internet or the beginning of the digital revolution, which is mid-1990s, when Stacy and I worked together way back when. That's about the time the internet became commercial. And you can look at this, Seinfeld was a top-rated show in 1995 with a ratings of 20.5%. Since then, we are seeing secular decline. So for the first couple, 2 or 3 decades, it was fine. The ratings were actually stable. But the moment the internet came in, you could see the precipitous decline in number of people watching TV in the evening. And these are pretty much all the primetime shows. By 2010, even powerhouse shows like American Idol were down to 13.7%, which further slid to 7.2% for NCIS by 2021. So if you take a step back, this is about 4x decline in viewership in the last 50 years. 4x. That's huge. That's a massive decline in viewership. But it doesn't mean that people are not watching news or program or entertainment. It's just that something else is happening. Simply stated, this is a tale of media fragmentation and consumer choice, primarily driven by digital technology. Once we had a few channels and shows which amassed large share audiences, now digital media has expanded our choices exponentially. We moved from media which used to be shared to personalized, fragmented, and on-demand, which is a question I think that Simon just asked. So that's a dichotomy. That's what has changed. Okay, let's see how. I want to now share some data about the disruption, and hopefully you guys can see how all the changes in the media, how the disruption happened to the consumer behavior. So picture this: by the year 2026, we'll see America where 80 million homes will leave cable bundles or cord cutting. Now, cable was the primary source of media consumption, and I suspect a lot of you guys still have cables, but that's changing. Massive number of folks are actually leaving cable and directly subscribing to the streaming services. So when I talk about cable means Comcast, right? So when you get the Comcast cable, you get hundreds of channels put together. And folks are actually leaving cable because they can directly get content through the internet connected TV, and you could subscribe to Netflix or Disney Plus or ESPN or whatnot, right? So this change is about 26% drop from just a decade ago. A remarkable change, as each household represents a choice, a decision to cut the cord and step into a new era, what they call media freedom. It's amazing how the consumer are moving away from cable, and streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus attracted viewers away from cable to the subscription model, and that's very important because that's driving a lot of the changes. Now, why does this matter for measurement? Because with cord cutting, the measurement firms now have to chase behavior on the other platforms. Before, as I said, if you're in a Nielsen home, Nielsen is measuring the homes, you measure the TV and the cable box. Now, if you're watching your Hulu on your mobile devices or your computer, the measurement firm have to make sure they're also measuring those devices and those platforms. Okay, and that's a challenge. As the media is becoming fragmented, consumers are watching shows in different places, different devices, and at their on demand when they like, where they like. Media companies like Nielsen have to make sure they're also, tracking the folks on different platforms, and that's a huge, huge effort. Let's talk about time shifting and binge. This is a massive change in behavior as well, what we are tracking for a number of years now. Time shifting or binge watching became a cultural phenomenon where 80% of us now binging shows, averaging nearly 6 episodes in one sitting. 6 episodes in one sitting. It's a sign of our times for consumers in total control. And some people say that Netflix actually started this whole cultural phenomenon of binging. DVR, let's look at
Mainak.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's a question related back to cable. James wants to know, with upgrades in technology, are cable companies able to generate viewership data themselves?
Yes. So great question. The question is, if you are upgrading your cable systems, and I think in about 2000 or so, these companies have been rolling out what is a smart cable set-top box. So there's a box that can get to your TV, and Comcast actually have a pretty good view of what programs are being watched on those boxes. But Comcast knows only about its footprint. And Comcast, for example, is now about 21 million homes. But if you're a marketer, if you're a P&G or Unilever, you're marketing to US viewers, that's great. Comcast can provide you what happened in Comcast, but they cannot provide you information what's happening on YouTube, for example, or Disney Plus or Netflix, because these are independent. And Comcast cannot measure Netflix because of the way the technology works. These are what we call walled gardens. Okay, but that's a good question, because as you're saying, that with technologies changing, a lot of these companies have a lot of more data now to understand the consumers, and they can actually aggregate the data and send and share those with advertisers. But the thing is, for advertisers, they want to understand the full market. So if I'm marketing Stacy, I want to know Stacy on TV, I'll target on TV, but I may not want to target on her on mobile. But if I don't know if it's Stacy, I may actually waste a lot of impressions on targeting Stacy on mobile as well. So somebody needs to put the measurement across different platforms. And that's what the measurement company like Nielsen, and now there are a lot of competition in the marketplace. A lot of startups are coming in. That's what they're trying to accomplish. But anyway, this DVR is an interesting data. As you can see, that role, we used to, in the old days, we used to record the programs and it was watched later, right? It's like DVR was kind of on-demand technology for us, but people are no longer scheduling our lives around TV anymore. Instead, we are demanding that TV fits into our lives on our own terms. And this is a massive change, like from 2017 to 2022, we are seeing 30%. And literally on the linear TV perspective, DVR is pretty much going to go away, because now folks can access the content on the cloud. They can access the content and watch whenever they can. But this is an important metric for people who have been tracking measurement for the last 50 years. Attention. I'm sure some of you guys are on your phone now. We scroll through Instagram, TikTok, answer emails on our WhatsApp, all while watching TV, or TV playing in the background, right? In this backdrop, our attention has become fragmented. Attention span, as you can see in the data, are now only 8 seconds, down from 12 seconds a couple of years back. And this is a massive change. And this is one that driving a lot of the challenges for measurement companies is not only attention, but how you measure engagement, how you measure emotions, because their attention is fragmented. So advertisers wants to know, are you engaged for the ad that you saw for 3 seconds, 4 seconds? If it's in YouTube, you're watching for 4 seconds, then you could skip the ad, right? More on multitasking. Nielsen found that 86% of smartphone users, which I suspect everybody on this call, splitting their focus with the device in one hand and the TV remote on the other, which means they're not watching one medium, they're watching both mediums at the same time. So we went through some of the data, and the data is very clear. It shows the fragmentation that's happening in the media and the increasing consumer choice, all driven by digital technology. And of course, it's changed our audience behavior. So if you're in the measurement business, like I have been most of my life, it's a Herculean task of following consumers across multiple devices and platforms.
Mainak, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a question based on that slide that you shared from Microsoft about attention span, wondering how that's measured.
Yeah, so Microsoft did what I call the study in the Microsoft lab, where they brought people in and they had what they call it, they put the neuroscience technology, so where you could put the your head band, which takes measures your wave, your attention, your emotions, and so on and so forth. And they did a split test across different screens, which means that they showed the test group and their test and control. They showed the TV, mobile, and laptop, and recorded the engagement. And then they came up with the metric called attention span, which is the index they created. So the average index used to be about, I think it was 13 to 12 seconds. And they've been tracking this, and it's on 8 seconds. I suspect that it's going to be much, much lower now. And it's not that difficult. Like if you guys, how many people of you use YouTube? I guess most of you are using YouTube, right? If you're in YouTube allows you to skip after 4 seconds. Now, YouTube, they don't do anything randomly. They have done a lot of tests, and I've been part of those tests early days in 2009, 2010, where we had tested for them. They show that attention actually after 4 seconds diminishes. So they are letting people to skip. You could skip the ad after 4 seconds, because after that, you kind of moved on. But this is a big challenge, is how, some people call the media these days an attention economy, right? How I can get your attention, or share of your attention. Used to be share of your voice, now it's share of your attention. And it's declining day by day, which is a pretty interesting challenge from the measurement perspective. But a great question.
Mainak, there's another related question regarding the Simpsons slide, where you had the average 5.8 episodes viewed, binge watching. Professor Wayman asked a question about how much time is spent viewing each episode. Is this measured? Something's covering my screen, sorry. Is this measured? Is there a minimum amount of time required? I'm curious, given the decline in attention span.
Yeah, so this is data from the Nielsen. We obviously, this is one of the Nielsen. I remember this data when we pulled this out for this particular presentation. We have a panel which is we track their consumption on all TV, but also streaming platforms like Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, Disney Plus, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Tubi, a bunch of, I think there are 20 different streaming. And so we tracked the panel, and what we said is that in minimum, they have to watch two or maybe 3 episodes. That was a cutoff per sitting. And then we took the data and found out, all the homes, and it was a quarter's worth of data, and found out what was the average number of episodes per sitting. And I think it was 2 episodes per sitting will take that above. And each of these shows, to your point, they were a mix between 30 minutes. A lot of the network replays are 30, like if you go to Hulu and you're watching the network shows there, it's about 30 to 35 minutes. But on the streaming platform, it can be longer than that. It's going to be 45, sometimes like, you know, if you're watching HBO Max, like True Detective, it's going to be in 50 minutes. So yeah, it was a mix between 30 and 50 minutes. But these are basically the episodes, which means this is just to show that the consumption has become on demand. So you don't have, you kind of moved away from the appointment-based watching TV. The only place you have appointment-based TV is sports, where the game starts a certain time and you have to be in front of the screen, right? If you're watching TV or mobile. Other than that, everything is available to you. The media library, the millions of shows are available if you put all these stuff together. So it's a great time for media, you know, for content, right? These are all available to you. But what's interesting is that from an advertising perspective, if you're advertising on these programs, I need to make sure I can catch you in this slot. In the old days, prime time, people who watch Seinfeld or Friends in, you know, late 90s or so, you kind of sat down in front of the TV at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. I forget when they started these shows. And if you're an advertiser, you know that how many people, you know, all the people are watching these shows and they can market you. But here, I have to make sure I have to find you at the right time when you're binging. And for that, I need the data. I need the tech, so make sure I can find you. Okay. We can come back to it again. Let me move on. I guess, yeah. So I want to talk to very quickly about measurement, why it's so messy right now. But, you know, it's messy. We saw that there's a lot of fragmentation, binge watching, you know, time shifting, multitasking, changes, massive decline in attention. So how does it impact measurement? Because it's messy right now. The impact is significant. Okay. So if you look at fragmentation, let's quantify the fragmentation in the simplest terms. Nielsen estimates that 50% of all media viewed on digital platform. This means that now we need to have tools and methodologies in place to measure both traditional TV and digital equally well. Now, traditional TV basically means what I just talked about is a live television, which is basically news to some extent because of breaking news. Certain things are breaking and you have to turn the TV to watch the news, and live sports, to all live programming. And then digital is everything else. Now, well, how much is this media is measured? So let's look at some data. This is an interesting chart from McKinsey. And McKinsey estimates that the TV, which is a gold standard in measurement, now only captures 20 to 30% of our media interactions. That's a pretty low number, 20 to 30%. The question is how we measure the 2/3 of the other media pie as accurately and as effectively as television. Now, I'm actually personally surprised at this number, but I think it's higher than 20 to 30%, but still, it's a massive, you know, like surprise for me, who have spent quite a bit of time measuring television. It's a lower number. I was hoping that it would be 40%. But there is a silver lining in the fragmentation, which is the data. You know, fragmentation of media across digital platforms such as CTV, which is a smart TV. If you're watching, if you have a smart, Samsung or Sony or LG TV, those are smart TVs connected to the internet. That's called CTV. Mobile devices, computer. These are platforms that's fragmenting a lot of the TV consumption away from media. So what's happening is we are creating a lot of different siloed data sets. And this is what I would call one of the biggest hurdle for measurement companies right now, is how to connect these siloed data sets for a complete picture. You largely right now we are looking at four what are silos. One is television. The second is connected TV, which is connected to the internet. The third is mobile devices. And the fourth is a computer. Okay. And this estimate, I think it came from Accenture, is that they have found out that 80% of media data remains siloed, which means they don't talk to each other. So if you're measuring for the advertiser, these data for advertising, the consumer behavior data information is not connected, which is a massive waste of media dollars if you're an advertiser and trying to advertise on each of these four platforms. And the irony is that the data for linear TV is measured quite well, but data-rich digital is not. Part of the reason is that we're talking about is their walled gardens. They have their own data, and they know a lot about their own data, but there is not an easy way to connect all these walled gardens. Okay, let me pause and see if there's questions about this. All right. So I'm going to quickly take you guys through, some of the, to upgrade measurement, we have to address at least 3 of these challenges that's facing the industry. And, it can be technical, but I'm going to quickly go through, and please stop me if you have questions. First, to address fragmentation, we have to measure all platforms and devices equally well. Because right now there's a lot of leakage, right? If marketers are buying, sometimes they know very well what's happening in TV. They don't know what's happening on Amazon Prime, because Amazon does not want to share the data in the same way the Nielsen is measuring TV. They may know very well what's happening in Amazon Prime, but they don't know what's happening on the YouTube. So it's really, really challenging, because all these companies have massive amount of data, but they don't talk to each other. And measuring all devices still remains elusive because of Byzantine workflows, bespoke data system cost, and lack of consumer participation. So, I believe this will require a different measurement framework paradigm, but we'll get to that in a second. The second one is privacy concerns. As you guys know that, with growth in subscriber media, like for streaming and registered users' data, we are able to link devices of the same person or household. However, the more deterministic the data means that we run into the challenges with consumer privacy, confidentiality, and compliance. So privacy is a huge issue for measurement companies or media and marketing companies, because it's hard to, despite the fact we have a lot of data there in silos, privacy gets in the way of connecting these data assets. Now, there are privacy technology you'll hear about, like Clean Room, or Google is coming up with something called Google Sandbox. An identity is a terminology of that allows you to really create your own persona that marketers can use for target and personalization. Their technology is evolving, but it still remains a big, big challenge. And the third is just the fragmentation we just talked about. To summarize, what I would say that these 3 things are very important, because unless we do the 3 things, there are 2 big, big consequences, one for advertiser, and the second for the media companies who are producing content. So for advertising, due to the siloed data of consumers, marketers struggle to reach their target audiences because they lack a holistic view of the viewing behavior across all platforms. This leads to wasted advertising spending and missed opportunities. And for studios and content providers or programmers, they lack the vital insights of audience engagement across different platforms, which is linear TV, CTV, and mobile. This hinders their ability to personalize content to viewer preferences across all viewing platforms. And since there are a lot of competition going on in streaming, they want you to really consume their media, but without good data and good measurement, they are unable to do it. So the mess that we're in currently does, impact both advertising and content providers. Okay. This is a good time to take a quick stop and see if we have any other questions or thoughts you guys have.
Mainak, I have a question. You mentioned privacy sandbox and some of the, safe rooms. Does the impending cookie deprecation impact streaming the same way it does traditional websites that we talk about in class? Like, is this as much a concern about the video side of things, or was this not really being used on streaming video platforms to begin with?
Great question. That the answer is yes, it does impact. So you have basically two worlds. One is we call walled gardens. And walled gardens can be our digital players, but also TV, because traditional TV like NBCU has Peacock, which is a subscription based, right? So they have a lot of information about you, your credit card, blah, 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 where you live, and basically you have a good identity, right? And what you watch on their platform. Netflix, Disney, they have that as well. But for the rest of the web, which is what I call browser-based web, they don't have it. The cookie was the ultimate way to link each of these information. But with the cookies going away, they have to rely on pseudo identity, right? So there's a lot of R&D going on in the industry, and I've been involved in a bunch of this where for the rest of the web, you start creating identities so that way you could know that it's Tracy who is watching, say, New York Times video. If you're not subscribing to New York Times, they will not know that. And Stacy was also watching YouTube, but also watching Peacock, right? So that identity technology will allow you to tie together. But Google's announcement of cookie deprecation really, really impacts the open web more than the walled gardens. Okay, good question. All right, so there got to be some solution, right? Otherwise, I'm just admiring the problem. And I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts and my thinking. I'm talking a lot about this thesis in the industry, and I'm very happy that I want to share with you guys as well. I think the future is AI, and I'll take you guys through a couple of scenarios why I think that's true. Look, the measurement has gotten really messy. We have tons of data and tech, but they're proprietary, siloed in the media world where consumers are totally control. We get that. But trying to solve these measurement issues with existing tools and data and privacy issues, government laws and tech and highly, highly competitive walled gardens, to my mind, is trying to solve yesterday's problem. So with more data, example, attention and engagement, we are in a better place than ever before to measure what I call the holy grail. Not only counting of people, which are the traditional metrics, but also the response to an ad or a content. So my thesis is that AI will not only solve classic challenges of measurement, like fragmentation, privacy, or methodology, we just touched upon some of this, but will leapfrog by addressing these issues, as well as bring the viewer emotional response in the mix. So, here, imagine AI is like a conductor, skillfully bringing together various elements to create a harmony. I'm imagining the AI, the same AI maestro, bringing together data, methods, privacy, and our response to a content or ad into a complete solution of combining counts of viewer, but also the response to the media. So it's not only counting, which is a challenge, but bringing the response together This approach, I believe, marks a significant shift in media measurement where attention and emotions are going to be part of the currency. Okay. And I'm arguing that this AI is going to solve at least three key challenges. The first is data fusion. We just talked about the siloed data. And what's exciting about the AI is that AI can now find ways to connect these what I call disparate massive data assets and come up with a what I call answer to your questions or analysis or query and whatnot. Second is advanced attribution model. Remember, for brands, it is critical to understand which platform or media drove performance so that they can double down on what's working. And we are seeing AI untangling the web of touch points, analyzing advertising exposures, social media interactions, and website visits to accurately credit each step in the conversion journey. And companies like Walmart, Booking.com, Starbucks, Netflix are all using advanced attribution model with AI. And I've worked with some of them already, and it's a pretty interesting and exciting space. And finally, emotional AI. Forget about counting eyeballs. AI can now analyze facial expressions, tone of voice, and even brain waves to gauge viewers' emotional response to content. Imagine understanding not just what people watch, but how it makes them feel, opening doors for hyper-personalized advertising and content, a question that I think Simon asked in my couple of slides. I believe that AI is going to do more, right? So at least a couple of areas that I see that hyper-target advertising, content optimization, and cross-platform, harmony are bringing all the platform information together. So to conclude, as we continue to add different tech in our repertoire, let's imagine the AI as a conductor, like he does for symphonies with various instruments and players to harmonize a complete picture of media measurement. It is an incredibly powerful tool. In this future, embracing challenges of fragmentation and consumer choice will not see them as obstacles, but as a stepping stones to a new era of audience measurement, one that is both dynamic and nuanced. I think it's time for the industry to really double down on AI because AI has opened up a whole new set of possibility of bringing all these disparate data together, but also extract meaning. And it's a very exciting time if you want to be in the measurement space, because it will create a lot of value for the marketers and brand. With that, let me stop and see if you have more questions or share some thoughts about what I just covered.
So, Mainak, there's two questions in the chat that have come in. The first is Professor Wayman is asking, is there any major organization that oversees measurement across the different platforms, such as the Advertising Research Foundation?
Yes. So ARF, Advertising Research Foundation, which I've been part of that institution for a long time. I've been on the board. They do a lot of what I call primary R&D on advertising, like how advertisers or consumers respond to advertising to different platforms, how they, different type of metrics and measurement. So a lot of the industry standards get debated under that umbrella. So that's one organization. There is a institution called Media Rating Council, called MRC. MRC is a ratings organization. It's our auditing organization that was mandated by US Congress in 1965. It's like FTC of media measurement. So they audit all the measurement companies like Nielsen when it measures TV, radio, digital, and all other companies. They audit YouTube because YouTube puts out its own metrics. They audit Facebook, they audit Amazon, just to make sure when Amazon is saying that this ad was seen on the Thursday Night Football, so many people have consumed, seen this particular ad, advertisers can actually trust that data. So they use Ernst & Young to audit all the processes. So I would say Advertising Research Foundation, mostly from the research perspective, and then the audit and from audit perspective, Media Rating Council, which is very, very important to build trust in the measurement space, because buyers and sellers use the data to buy and sell and trade advertising, and you need that trust. But it works pretty well in the US, and they have the same thing globally outside the United States as well.
Thank you. And Danielle's asking, if the information is behind walled gardens, how can AI accurately gauge the big data without violating the Amazon's and the consumer's privacy?
Great question. So I think if I understood the question is that you're saying that AI is going to land into same issues or same challenges that we have today, because people actually are keeping the data in silo. I mean, one of the interesting benefit of AI in the training model, and we have trained a few things in my professional life where you don't need the walled garden data, like a full corpus of data. You could, based on a sample data, you could start training. And one area where Nielsen has been working on, the companies like VideoAmp or iSpot, they are collecting ACR data, which means that automated content recognition. So if you have a smart TV, there are software that captures second by second frame of what's happening on the TV screen. If you can take that data and you process, and that's a massive amount of information that you get, regardless of whether Amazon is holding its own data or YouTube, you can actually take that data, and it's independent of Amazon and YouTube. They don't control your screen. They control what you're watching, but if you're watching Netflix on the TV screen, ACR is able to scrape that information. And Samsung has that. Recently, a company called Vizio, which has been the leading proponent of ACR technology, got acquired by Walmart because Walmart wants to get that data for themselves. So there's a lot of competition going on in collecting the data, horizontal data, I call it the enterprise level. But ACR is a very, very, very interesting data asset, which actually supersedes the constraint that you might have on the walled garden.
And Ayush asks another question related to the privacy concerns, this time related to emotional AI and its ability to know users' facial expressions or other types of measurement devices that are using new types of data that may seem more personal to the user than data even used today, such as cookies.
Yeah,
yeah.
So good question. But think about AI is that you actually don't need you need a smaller, what I call, training set. So for example, if I get information from the folks here on the call, I could use that to train larger corpus of data. Now your training may be bad, outcome may be that you're not getting the right result, but the AI technology, as it kind of opening up in different places, at least in the measurement that I've been working with, you don't need to have what I call highly personalized, individualized personal data. All you need is a good training set, and based on the training set and some signals of a person, you could actually predict their emotions. And that's where I think a lot of the bet is. I'm not saying that I'm not arguing that AI is going to solve the privacy issues, but what I am saying is some of the privacy challenges are primarily not so much people don't want to give the data, they don't know what's going to happen. But with AI, you could start training on a small set and apply the results on a larger, data assets, which actually is pretty interesting. And the results that we are seeing is pretty promising. But all the privacy issues are not going away.
Thank you. Is there any last question before I ask a last question? Edward asks, what role do you think Apple will play in the coming years? Although they value consumer privacy, it seems, am I holding my my smile in on that one? It seems like they have products across the four major silos mentioned.
Yeah, so Apple has Apple TV, this is operating system on the television. Then you have obviously computer, mobile devices. Apple is, it's an interesting company. It's a company that integrated hardware and software vertically. And obviously they have a lot of information, and they are, to your point, absolutely, the brand is privacy sensitive. That's an attribute for the brand. Now the question is about the AI. What's the question exactly?
Edward, if you want to unmute and clarify your question.
Yeah, so mainly just thinking of them as potentially being a data broker, right? And then also thinking of, the opportunity of Vision Pro and how that could essentially transform the advertising space.
They are not going to be a data broker. They want to keep all the data. And a lot of people are betting, including myself, that Vision Pro is where a lot of the future of artificial intelligence is going to play out. And Apple is Apple. They're going to do an amazing job in monetizing it on their own platform. You're absolutely right. The Vision Pro, which is their what they call spatial computing, right? Everything that you do here, sight, sound, and motion, is kind of converging there. And they may have missed the first AI boat, but they don't care because they're going for what I call the ultimate 360 degrees of consumer behavior. Now you consume media, live our lives, and work and engage with our, friends and people. That's the place where they are going to drive. And I know for a fact, because we have worked with them in in recent days, where they're putting a lot of investment. So you're absolutely right. That's the direction they're going. But they are not going to let that data flow out of the system, because that's not the brand.
Thank
Great
you.
questions.
Thank you.
In our 3 minutes left, most of the people on this call are not data scientists, but I'm sure find this field and the ever-changing technology impact and disruption really interesting. So I'd love to get a little bit of advice to everybody about how a business person and a marketer can expose themselves to this in their career and kind of work in this space.
Yeah, look, I think this is the most exciting space to be in, and not because I work in this space. I do work in this space, but I feel like every year with the change in technology, this is the most exciting place to be. And there's a lot of data, but not only data, you could actually relate to it because you're a consumer, right? We're all consuming the same thing, and we see how we are changing our behavior. A lot of people are saying this election is going to play out on TikTok and Instagram, which is true. My friends at the New York Times are scratching their head and say, well, I'm going to cover election because people are converging on TikToks on Instagram. I think, so the question about the career, so what we do as a business, I gave you what I call more insider view of the industry in the data, platform, workflows, challenges about privacy. But at the end of the day, we also need people who are very, very good in communication, very good understanding consumer behavior, very good in marketing, go-to-markets. We build products and services that you have to go and take to the marketplace, make sure you're building the right products, you're making sure you're addressing privacy issues, governmental issues, consumer choices. So these are what I call not only soft skills, but skills that I'm pretty sure Stacy is driving this agenda in her program. These are very important skills to have. So you could get into marketing, you could go to the client service, you could go to the sales, business development. And then I personally have built, my career in the data science. That's what I do. But increasingly what we are saying is a lot of the work that I do, I've been done by computers. So I don't have to I actually don't do much coding anymore because I use a computer, the software now, it actually codes on behalf of me, and it just debugs my code now. So a lot of things I used to do 10 or 15 years back, I don't do anymore. But The key is to have passion for the industry, which is very, very important. If you're passionate about this media and marketing, generally speaking, there's a lot of interesting disruption happening, and I'm hoping that some of you guys are going to be part of this journey. Stacy, you're on mute.
I realized that. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you so much, Mainak, for all your great responses and for enlightening us about the future of media measurement. And I hope everybody fully absorbed how important and exciting this topic is that's facing our industry today. And thanks to all of you tonight for joining our RBS MS Digital Marketing Speaker Series. Have a great night. See you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.